Good morning. I'm Dick Wagner. Welcome to the Crest Network. Today, I want to talk to you about sales influence and especially matching their dialect, matching how they talk, words they use, phrases, their style, their speed of talking or speaking. So we're going to cover 20 slides or so about matching the clients or the prospect's dialect. And if you do that and you do that well, you will significantly change the sales influence. What is exactly sales influence? Well, it evolves out of or comes from knowing important details about your client or about your prospect. It's incredible to me, and I talk to sales people and marketers many, many times a week. And especially early on in my coaching with these salespeople, I'm amazed at how many of them don't know almost any details about their prospects or their client. Sure, they might know that a particular insurance agent works for State Farm or Allstate, or they might know a particular plumber works for a particular plumbing company, but they don't know the kinds of details that are critical for true sales influence. When I say match their dialect, I'm talking about matching their lingo. In the disaster recovery industry, and I've said this in other videos and webinars, we have our own set of terminologies and language. The simplest, easiest one that I can use is DHU. Every single one of us on this webinar know what a DHU is. But oddly enough, that term DHU is only familiar to us in the disaster recovery industry. You go talk to your doctor about a DHU and he has no clue. Talk to an insurance agent about a DHU, they don't know what you're talking about. So if you want to be credible, if you want to have actual sales influence with your prospects and your clients, you've got to learn and then use their lingo. You've got to get comfortable with the terms that they use within their specific industry. You can call it slang. We have slang terms in our industry. We might call it an air scrubber, or you might hear the term hog, air hog. It's a slang term. And then in every industry, I don't care if it's the military or the disaster recovery industry, every industry uses acronyms. And those acronyms are crucial to understanding their particular dialect, how they speak. Essentially, an acronym is a shortcut to say a long word or a long sentence. Just like today, we have the CARES Act. Don't ask me to tell you what CARES stands for, but I'm going to take a wild stab that the C stands for COVID or coronavirus. So there is a CARES Act. It's an acronym. There are so many acronyms used in every single industry, and we don't know them. If we're going to call on insurance agents, we need to learn their acronyms. If you're going to call on plumbers, You need to learn their acronyms, their slang, the lingo that they use and banter about every single day. Another part of sales influence is recognizing that everybody processes information typically in one of three different ways. The first way is visual, and visual would sound or seem like, I see what you're saying. That looks good. What a great view of the situation. I just don't see it. These are people that are visual, and they react and respond and embrace comments that lend toward their visual information gathering. The next one is auditory, the sound. It sounds good to me. If you hear somebody say, hey, that rings a bell, that's very, very likely that they are auditory. If they are auditory, you need to speak in words and phrases and sentences that demonstrate to them that you are speaking to their particular style. In this case, auditory. Like, we're on the same wavelength, man. And last is kinesthetic. A little tricky to say, but kinesthetic is kind of like the touch. And there are people out there that respond in that way. Drove home the point. Picture a hammer driving the nail. Or get a grip. That's a kinesthetic. When someone says, get a grip, they're talking in a kinesthetic way. Or if they say, that's a solid explanation, that's how they're responding. If you want to have significant sales influence, you need to take a little bit of time during these few weeks of stuck at home and Google and read up on auditory, read up on kinesthetic, read up on these different ways that people hear and see and understand. Another part of sales influence is recognizing that people become convinced over time. Now, that time could be really, really long, or it could be very brief, very short. An example is that some buyers, they just simply accept information. I try to do this with my 5-year-old grandson. I try to periodically see how receptive he is, how vulnerable he is, how willing he is to buy into what I'm saying. And folks, even a 5-year-old doesn't automatically accept information. A lot of it depends on how it's presented and whether it's believable or credible or not. Some buyers take several exposures, several interactions with you, several touches, as the saying goes, before they accept information. Other buyers are convinced over a much longer period of time. Some buyers need a steady diet of information. They need consistency. They need to have it repeated to them quite often. And there are buyers out there that have to be fed continuously. You might have some insurance agents or some plumbers that have to be visited and reminded of your services regularly. Those people need a continuous diet of information. Not all of them. Some of them are comfortable with you. Some of them believe in you. Some of them trust you. Some of them believe you are fully credible, and they're sold. You don't need to constantly feed them a pablum of information. Some of them want a steady flow, but not a never ending flow and a steady interaction. Some of them are good with just regular reminders, like once a week or once a month. And and I'd encourage you to also to Google this as well. There's a concept of familiarity. Familiarity says, and this holds true pretty much any Google, any site you go to on Google, but pretty much everybody is saying that for a client or a prospect to become familiar with you, where you are top of mind, where they remember you, where they can immediately think of you as that go-to person, it takes upwards of an average of 8 touches to convert a brand new prospect. So, folks, if you have been visiting an insurance agent for the past 3 or 4 or 5 months, that might not be enough. But every owner is not going to sit there and wait while the marketer goes out there and visits an agent or a plumber 8 times once a month for 8 months before that prospect is going to respond and send them some work. So there are other ways to have a touch. And so many of us have gotten away from this. So many of us, and especially marketers, like the idea of the freedom, being out on the road, visiting, stopping by once every 3 to 4 weeks. But that just by itself takes upwards of 8 months before you're going to have any impact. And that's just not acceptable. So what are some of the other touches that are out there? Well, folks, Facebook posts. That's a perfect touch to have exposure to your prospects and your clients. Obviously, especially if they are following your business page or they are friends with you on your own personal page. One of the biggest failures of so many sales and marketing people is their lack of using Twitter. Tweets that you can pound out in a matter of moments and send out there are powerful. They're perfect for a touch, especially when you can get your clients and your prospects to follow your Twitter account. And if you have both a business Twitter account and a personal Twitter account, you can you should follow each other, number one, and then you can go in and share or retweet the tweet on your business account, retweet it so that it goes to your personal account and vice versa. That is dramatically upping the game of exposure. LinkedIn is also an excellent way to post comments and articles and it's a great way to like someone else's article and to share someone else's article. And why that's so easy and so significant is that if they're connected to you on LinkedIn, that's a no-brainer. You can comment on any posts that they make. You can even click the like and share buttons, and that is additional multiple exposures on one platform. On LinkedIn, if you comment on an article, if you post an article, if you like someone else's article or you share someone else's article, or even if you take the time, and I'm amazed at how many of you don't, if you take the time to wish somebody happy anniversary or happy birthday on LinkedIn, it's exposure, it's touches, it's getting your name out there. It's part of the familiarity concept that I just talked about. You need familiarity. You need your clients to be familiar with you. If it takes 8 touches, right here, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn alone have the mechanisms for you to have 8 touches all by themselves right there. Obviously, personal visits is a touch, but we also fail to use email properly, and email is a great way for a touch. Even if they don't open it, if you have the right message in the subject line and they see your name in the sender portion, that's a great touch. That's enhancing the familiarity. For those that have their clients and prospects phone numbers, cell phone numbers on your cell phone, text messaging is an excellent way. Don't go text messaging people that haven't given you permission or don't expect it, because that is illegal per the federal government. You know what? Every one of us watching this video, and I'm just as guilty, hate making phone calls to prospects and clients. But you know what? Many of us are homebound. Many of us are quarantined right now in our homes, or at a minimum in our office. And phone calls is just about the only real lifeline we have out there to keep our name out there with our prospects and our clients, unless you've done a really good job of gathering your prospects and clients' email addresses. So pick up the phone. Yeah, is it scary? Of course it is. Why is it scary? Because you can't control it. They can be rude to you. They can be nasty. They can slam the phone down on you. They can call you names. They can tell you to never, ever, ever, ever call them again. But you know what? When they hang up on you, or if they are rude to you, the very next thing that you should think in your mind, the instant you hang up that phone, is the word NEXT. Next. It's just like you're in line at the bank and the teller says, next, I can help, who's next? That's how you have to treat making phone calls. Next, because there's another person you can call. Voicemails. Yes, if you leave the right voicemail, the proper voicemail with your name, it's a touch. It's adding to the familiarity. And then almost everybody on this webinar has known me for a long time, has had my training and my classes. Most of you are Crest Elite members, and have access to an incredible library of Maven articles. And those Maven articles are an awesome, tangible touch for your clients. I know I spent a lot of time on this slide, but there are so many ways for you to improve and enhance your familiarity and your company's familiarity. And since it takes upwards of 8 touches or more for people to get comfortable with you, you should be using all of these different methods to increase or enhance those touches. Some incredible sales statistics that really aren't very good for sales and marketing people. Only 10% of salespeople actually make more than 3 contacts. Now, if you're a marketer out there in a restoration business that has a route and you call on them routinely every 3 to 4 weeks, yeah, then you're going to be making more than 3 contacts. But if you're calling on commercial clients, such as hotels or nursing homes or churches or colleges and schools, I'm willing to put pretty big dollars on it that most of you that are rejected or rebuffed or had the door slammed in your face more or at least 3 times don't go back. And yet 2% of sales, or only 2% of sales, are made on that first contact. And oddly enough, 3% of sales are made on the second visit, 5% on the third. But if you add that up, that's only 10% of all of the visits. So you really, truly need to make more than 3 visits, especially if it's in the commercial environment. And then the process of follow-up. Once again, so many salespeople are either not familiar with this or they are weak in this manner. But the follow-up is crucial. And the key word, the very first word there, ASK, ask for the next step. That's the first part of the follow-up process, asking for the next step. To have the discipline in your sales and marketing efforts to ask for the next step is crucial. Ask for the next date and time to meet. And when they give you a date, or if they don't give you a date and time, they're evasive, they're elusive, they say, oh, yeah, why don't you stop by in 2 or 3 weeks? No, they're not giving you an appointment. They're deliberately blowing you off. You just don't know it. You're thinking, oh, wow, they want me to stop by in 2 or 3 weeks. They must really be interested. The fact is, that's their nice, polite way to let you down. To ask for the next step is to be specific. Well, in 2 weeks, how about in 2 weeks on Tuesday the 19th? How about 10 a.m.? How does that work for you? When they say yes, send them a calendar invite. If they accept it, they pretty much confirmed it. If they don't accept it, but they said, yeah, that'll work, you still plan to go there or make that phone call or have that interaction on that date and that time. Is it likely that they're going to blow you off at that time? Absolutely. But without asking and confirming, you can't, and you're not being direct. Make sure that you're asking the right questions. How often? Well, if they're visual, you might say, how often should we meet and see each other? Or I typically like to see my clients monthly. Is that good with you? How often, if they're auditory, you might say, how often do you want to have a conversation? That doesn't mean a visit necessarily, but a conversation. It, by the way, does not rule out a visit either. Or when they're talking to you, you might respond with, I hear what you're saying, because that lends itself to their auditory interactions and comfort level. If they are kinesthetic, you might say, how many times do you want me to stop by and visit? Yeah, some people are going to say, well, geez, that's like opening up a can of worms. I mean, they might say, well, there's no need to stop by again. I've got all your information. So don't leave it hanging at that point. Make sure that you add to that, is once a month good for me to stop by and visit you? You have to be aware of details about your client. It continually amazes me in working with clients, and I coach many salespeople on a regular basis, many of them weekly and many of them every other week. And I continually be frustrated at how many of them don't know important details about their client. Folks, I'm here to tell you that you've got to do your intel. You've got to do your homework. And it really is homework right now if you are sitting at home. You've got to do your research. Yesterday at 11 a.m. Eastern, I did a 45-minute webinar specifically for sales and marketing people. If you are on the Crest membership site, if you have a username and a password, if you are a Crest member, you can go on and click on that most recent webinar that was posted. It was recorded, it's on the website now for you to watch, and it goes through the steps on ways that over the next 10 days you can get your CRM in order by doing the research, doing the homework, doing the intel to get information about your prospects and your clients. But if you do this, it helps you speak their language better and more naturally. It doesn't seem awkward or uncomfortable. It lets you know and understand their pain points. We all have them. Your clients have them. We have them. You all have them. Somebody that's going to be calling on you and wants to be credible and believable better know what your pain points are. When you do your homework and research, it raises your credibility. It raises your believability. I harp on this a lot, but I'm going to tell you, if you don't enhance and improve and raise your credibility and believability with your client, you're not going to have trust from that client. And when you have no trust, you have no sale. To sell, you need to know exactly what they want. And what I mean by exactly what they want is you need to know exactly what their pain point is, exactly what their struggle is, what their headache is, what their fear is, what their constant worry is that affects their peace of mind. So learn to ask the right questions. The right questions extract that information And if you have done your homework and your research, you know how to ask that probing, deep question that tells them not only that you're paying attention and that you're interested, but it's telling them that you are an insider. You know information about their business. The better you are at asking deep, thought-provoking questions of your clients, the more engaged your client's going to be with you. And when they are engaged with you, they're more likely to buy from you. You should be asking good questions about their challenges, the things they struggle with. You ought to be asking good questions about their customers. Not how many customers do they have, but what does your customer think about this or that? How do you deal with the customers that challenge you on this or that? You ought to also be asking good questions of your prospects and your clients about their personal interests.
I think we have plenty right now. Yeah. Okay.
Somehow I was overhearing a conversation in the background, so I stopped for just a second. Also want to address wasted questions. Wasted questions. There's a video on the Crest Network, very specifically. I think it's a 12 or 14-minute video that talks about asking wasted or empty or foolish questions, questions that serve no useful or valuable purpose. How are you? Nobody cares. Nobody cares how you are. When you ask, how are you? It's just a conversation filler. You aren't particularly interested in their response. And even if they give you a response, it's meaningless. I've walked out of restaurants and had the manager say to me, how was everything? And my response was, oh, it's terrible. And sometimes there's just this instant stunned pause and hesitation. And I do it deliberately because I want to see if they're really asking because they care. I want to see if they're really listening to the answer. Because the fact is, most people are asking the question generically, and most people answer the question generically. How was everything? Oh, it was fine. Another wasted question. How's business? Well, not very many people are going to tell you, oh, it's horrible. I'm on the verge of bankruptcy. Because people just don't typically share that information. Another wasted question, because it's a dead ringer to the fact that you're a salesperson. Are you the decision maker? And then here's a twist. Is this a good time to talk? It's also a wasted question. If you want to ask a question along those lines, especially when you're making a phone call to somebody, is to say, is this a bad time to talk? The reason you say, is this a bad time to talk, is because they will tell you if it is a bad time to talk. And if they tell you it's a bad time to talk, they will almost always tell you when the better time is. And when they tell you the better time, now you have them expecting you to call at that particular better time. That's a much better way to ask that question. Is this a bad time to talk? Get in the habit of asking that. And then if you haven't done research on your client, if you don't know details about your client, then there's no way that you can have a pre-qualifying process. And you have to have a pre-qualifying process. You can't pre-qualify if you haven't done your homework. You can't pre-qualify if you haven't researched your prospect, researched their business, and if you don't know some details about their industry and their business, you can't possibly pre-qualify that client. And you have to pre-qualify the client so that you know, as in one of my recent video webinars that I did, it's on the Crest Network. You can't pre-qualify and identify your prospects as A, B, or a C client unless you've done some homework. An A client stands for awesome. A B client stands for borderline. You might be able to convert them to an A, but you may ultimately have to relegate them to the C list. And C stands for, yep, you guessed it, crap. Every vertical is different. The homework and the research you do on your insurance agent and the insurance industry is different and will be different, and the information will be different than the research you do on the plumbing world or the HVAC world, or the research you do on hotels or nursing homes or schools, colleges, churches, daycare centers. Different verticals have different wants and different needs. Yes, some of the wants are universal. Some people want more customers. I wouldn't say that a school falls into that category. Some people want more profit. Some people want loyal employees. Those are, for the most part, universal. But there are some more specific needs that you need to find out about and learn for your particular client or the particular vertical that you're targeting. Some want peace of mind, and you need to know what gives them peace of mind. Some want a better quality of life. Maybe they're working 80 hours a week. They want a better quality of life and not work so much. Maybe they want good reviews on Yelp or Google. Maybe they just simply want less worry or less hassle. Folks, thanks so much for watching this webinar. I'm Dick Wagner. I hope you will go to the Crest website, thecrestnetwork.com, and click on the videos. There are dozens and dozens of training videos there for you on an incredible number of very narrow and very specific topics. In addition to that, every single webinar, I think 10 or 12, 14 hours worth of our Tuesday morning webinars are also on there recorded so that you can click and watch them as well and get caught up. Thanks for being a Crest member. Hope you'll join us next week. Bye-bye.